Hi everyone, I'm your host Emily, twin mum, twin and entrepreneur. Today's guest is a certified financial advisor and a regular on national TV breakfast show, Betsy Westcott. Betsy's going to share how to set up a strong financial position for parents, your top steps, tips and hacks. Let's jump in. Betsy, it's so great to have you today. Thank you for joining us. Could you please tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Yes. Hi, Emily. Thank you for having me. I'm a licensed financial wellness coach. I work with couples and individuals to help them understand money and make the most out of it so they can live with purpose and prosperity and financial freedom and whatever their version of a rich life is. That's what I help them to create. But by way of background, I started in financial services 15 years ago. I've covered running bank branches, being a private banker for wealthy families and individuals, launching fintechs and new banks and running transformation programs. And through that, I realized what I really love is that one-to-one helping people understand money, because it's this thing that we all have access to. Some of us know how to use it really well, and some of us haven't got a clue or have got a bit of a clue, but not much. It can really impact the trajectory of your life, choices you make, the experiences you get to have. I liken it to getting keys to a car without driving lessons. So I like to be everyone's driving instructor, so to speak.
I love that. You're giving me memories back to when I first learned to drive. Very important to get lessons.
Yes. Actually, I feel like you and I might have had the same driving instructor, but that's a side note. Was it Ian?
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was.
The rowing coach.
Rowing coach. Yeah. Oh my God, he was a character. Ian.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ian. Thank you for solving those driving issues very early on. That's a really good way to explain it. I know you do this day in, day out, so I'm really excited for our audience to hear more about some of your tips and insights as we go through. So Betsy, there's a reason that people have tuned in today. They've seen this episode is on parenthood finances. They've decided to listen. Why should they be prioritizing this? We're all very, very busy. What is a hook there?
Well, finances are basically the foundation of so many aspects of our lives, and financial well-being, when we have that, improves our broader well-being, reduces stress, improves our mental health, it improves our relationships, something that is, very front and center when you're raising little kids. Mm-hmm. It also provides a sense of security, particularly at a point in time where the reality for many families is that cost of living is going up. Housing affordability can be quite a challenge. And there's a lot of concerns around long-term wealth creation, being able to retire and live comfortably. But when families have control over their finances, they're better equipped to handle unexpected expenses. They can plan for the future and get through and still achieve or at least maintain those life goals, that quality of living that they want, maintain overall physical, emotional, and social well-being, which is critical, particularly in those early years where you're navigating this new role of parenting. You're also navigating a real change in lifestyle where you might have increased expenses, but also decreased income. Something people always ask me is, what is financial well-being anyway? How do you actually know if you have it? Do you need to be Kardashian rich and then you're good? Or is it something simpler? I put it down to these three factors. And if you can say yes to all three, then you can put your hand up, bend your elbow, pat yourself on the back. You've got financial well-being. So do you have enough money to meet your day-to-day needs? You're spending less than you earn, as everyone always goes on about. Do you have money set aside to withstand a financial shock, something unexpected, unplanned? You got the means to get yourself through those sort of situations. And then number three, are you actively putting money toward your long-term plans, your long-term goals? And if you can say yes to all three, then you have financial well-being. So I hope that's a helpful guide.
I think that's really good. The other thing that springs to mind is once you go into that parenthood journey, it's so much more amplified as well, isn't it? There's a lot more on the line and at stake, and we know that statistically there are issues with relationships and the cost of living, as we've talked about. And so I think it is really important to think about it.
A little bit of planning goes such a long way. It's really taking care of your future self, having conversations early, taking steps to reduce debt, to build up your savings buffers, to think about what financial support is available to us, paid parental leave or different social services support. And it's it is a really challenging time. As I said, expenses go up, income comes down. But if you can plan for that, think through that, you're going to get through so much better. If there is a period where you do not have the means to be actively saving, in fact, you might be living off savings, that is completely normal during those early days of parenting, particularly when your income is down. If you aren't able to put money away, if you are living off savings, you are not a failure. You're going through a very normal experience for that season of
Yeah.
life. So I want to reassure people that, yeah, it's a tight time financially, particularly in those early years.
Yeah. And I think the realities of it being a tight squeeze and people not feeling shame for maybe not being set up is a really good call out. So today, what we're going to do for the audience is we're going to run through a nice structure to get people easy ways to understand how to approach it, especially those of us who are time poor. So a good lead into the next question, the most important categories of expenses for parents that are about to become parents or in those early years of parenthood.
I really like how you've distinguished the before and after, because I think that's an easy way to approach it and not get overwhelmed. Research from the University of Canberra says that it costs between $13,000 to $30,000 a year to raise a child. And if you tally that up over 18 years, assuming that they actually move out of home after 18 years, may or may not happen, you're looking at between $500,000 to just over $1 million per child. It's a pretty big sum. Breaking it down into segments, into seasons is going to help you tackle it step by step. Think about the different phases. So you've got preconception, then pregnancy, and then you've got parenthood, and there's different phases of parenthood. Preconception, you'll be thinking a lot around getting your insurances in place. That might not be the first thing on your list, but it really should be, because it's much easier to get your cover set up for income protection, life insurance, total permanent disability, pre-baby. Also, for health insurance, you might have to see out some waiting times. Understanding what your needs are in terms of these types of insurances and getting them set up pre-baby is a really smart idea. Then you're building up your savings buffers, trying to pay down debt, particularly high interest debt. So think credit cards, leases, personal loans. Then also the preconception expenses, whether that's prenatal vitamins, or if you're navigating assisted fertility treatments, those can be up in the thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So just thinking through, what does our journey look like? What do we anticipate the expenses to be? And how do we get this early phase sorted? Once you're lucky enough to conceive, then it's thinking about, okay, well, what will we need in the early days to support this baby? What medical expenses will we have? Probably some more vitamins, establishing your nursery. A lot of people rush to upgrade the car. I would temper that and wait and see if you really do need to upgrade the car. From personal experience, we kept our hatchback for our first child and it was perfectly fine. So you don't need to get like the mummy tractor straight away. Maybe if you're having multiples, I concede you might need a bigger car, but it's one of those things that you often think you need, but you don't, and it's a big expense. Other things, mum's probably going to need, or the parent that's carrying is going to need probably some new clothes. And then are you looking at any extra ones? Are you going to go private for your birth? What's that cost? Do you want to have in-home assistance like doulas and things like that? Then there's the afterbirth period. So that's the recovery for the mum. Let's not forget about mum. I know we get very excited about babies, but we need to make sure that mum is well catered and well cared for. So whether that's that post-birth doula, food services, because who's got time to cook, the physio, some doctor's visits, things like that. Then there's feeding baby, dressing baby, getting baby around. You might have formula expenses, breastfeeding pillows, sterilizers, breast pumps potentially. Then once you're getting through all of that, it's thinking about what are ongoing education and childcare expenses and planning for them.
I think you've gone through some good ones. And if I was to recap, so it would be pre-babies, get your insurances in place, start having a conversation with your partner if you've got a partner or your support people. Have the conversation around what expenses are coming up, what you might do, and what levers you can pull. I'd probably add to that as well. If you can bank up your holiday and carers leave, that's a really good tip, because then you've got obviously paid maternity leave where you can convert it. Then you talked about the medical costs for the mother, so private
Mhm.
or going public. The public system in Australia is particularly good. In some other countries, it depends. I would say look at what costs you can get covered if you're a person that's in a situation where you want to reduce that, or you've got a straightforward birth as well. I will say if you're having multiples like myself, you'll be most likely sent straight to the public system because our system is just fantastic here, even if you've got a private
Yeah.
doctor. So something to consider. And then you move forward to obviously the birth and then recovery. So what kind of expenses, so physio, etc. There are a lot of hacks there, and I will add for the physio, for those of you who don't know, if you've got health cover, you can get some subsidies there. There's also the public system physios you can access for scans as well. So make sure you ask your doctor. If you do some recovery classes, you can also do things like Pilates through your physio, which is claimable in healthcare. So mention that. But Betsy's basically gone through a few phases. It's good to know, take it piece by piece, and definitely start thinking and working out little hacks to put money away.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the next piece. Say there's a solo parent or a couple that have decided that they are having children and they want to have a chat about their finances. What is a good first step to kick that off?
Really starting to think about what kind of life you want to create for this child, then getting into the details of how you're going to approach it. Particularly if you're in a couple, you want to be on the same page. You want to be a collaborative team and you want to have some structure. In terms of getting aligned, start with your vision of the future. You're about to become parents. Isn't that exciting? How do you see it all unfolding? Where do you want to live? Is that different to where you are now? How will you share in the care for this child? And that applies to solo parents as well. I've got a cousin who's recently become a mum as a solo parent, and she's assembling the village around her to make sure that she gets that support. So thinking about who's going to help you or what services are you going to utilize to support the care of that child or children. What parental leave programs are available? What government support services can you tap into? What savings do you have? Then what are your expectations of each other? I think it's a really good conversation to have when you are envisaging that future. What is your expectations of the mum or as a mum? What's your expectation of a dad or as a dad? Who's going to organize the money, or how will you come together to make financial decisions? What's the framework that you're going to use? What's really important to you both? Because I'm sure you will attest this, Emily. There's how you think things are going to go, and then there's how things actually go when the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, or if
And
you just don't think about it and then it
yeah,
plays
like,
out as well.
yeah. So what are the not negotiables, or what's really high
Mhm.
priority and really important to you? And then also talk about what are you worried about? Because voicing that early or raising that early, you can actually start making steps to mitigate that, or realize maybe it's not actually a real concern. It's more of an imagined concern. In this step of getting really aligned and clear about that vision of the future, I want you to be dreaming, exploring, designing the ideal. Then from that step, that's when you can really get into the details, looking at your finances. What's your financial position? What's available to you? How are you going to work together? How are you going to organize things? But start by getting on the same page or getting that clear vision of what do you want. There's a million ways you can raise a family and a baby, but getting clear around what do you want, what does your family want and need is the place to start.
What would be for, let's say there's listeners that perhaps they don't really like talking about money. They know they should, but maybe if they've got a partner, their partner's not interested, or one's more interested than the other, or if they're
Yeah.
solo, they're just feeling a lot of stress. Is there a fun way to do it? Would you recommend going for lunch or for a coffee or having some sort of good environment to make it a bit more enjoyable? What have you seen work?
100%. The top three emotions that people have around money is fear, guilt, and shame, which I just
Right.
it's sad actually, because money's fun. I love money. I have a great time with money. I wish we could reframe it to joy, excitement, possibility. But if you
Mhm.
do feel those things, that's very, very normal. So framing the conversation from a really positive perspective. I'm curious. I want to work together. I want to make sure we're a great team, setting it up and
Mhm.
giving someone notice. Like, don't spring a conversation on them, and don't have a conversation when you're having an emotional reaction to something. So you've just got your first bill for a scan and it's more than you expected and you're
Mhm.
freaking out and you're like, we need to talk about money now. Let's take a breath. Let's regulate our system before we do this, just so we can have
Yeah.
the best possible conversation. And if you are prepping someone, you're going to have this conversation, choose a time where everyone's feeling calm and comfortable. Maybe have an agenda so you can keep the conversation on track and everyone can come in prepared. There's no surprises. And as you said, put it in a really nice environment. Light a candle, pour a glass of wine if you will, get some cheese and bickies, or go to your favorite cafe, or even set yourself a reward that you get to have once you've had the money conversation. All of these things can help in framing it. If you're really struggling to navigate this or to have healthy conversations, get some support. Don't avoid the conversation. So, whether that's a financial coach like myself that specializes in couples, or even
Mhm.
working with a relationship counselor, which I would highly, highly recommend,
Mhm.
because if you want to get really fit, strong, and athletic, you go and get a physical fitness coach for whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Same goes for your relationship or your money. Go get a coach who can guide you, hold space for you, keep you accountable. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean your relationships are in a bad place. It's just that you're aspiring for better and you're going to go get the tools to help you get there. Don't be afraid to get support when navigating this stuff.
Love that. So I'm going to recap again because I think you're giving some really good advice here. So you talked about, so the approach here, be mindful of your tone. So how you approach your partner and in what environments. Hopefully positive
Mm.
as an opportunity and exploratory is what I got from Betsy. Timing, don't do it at the end of the day when people are burnt out, or maybe a Friday when you haven't had any sleep after maybe a week of work. Not ideal. So timing, have some notes and structure. So a bit of an agenda. You could even say to your partner, perhaps, do you want to think about what you think is important? I'll think what I think is important. Let's bring that together over a glass of wine, dinner, coffee. The reward. So the reward could be dinner or lunch or ice cream. And then the support thing is great. And I will say that I have found that fantastic. My partner and I have had a coach and we took a long time getting there and agreeing that it was something we'd invest in. But once we've done it, they've cleaned everything up. They also acted as almost a mediator between us to help kind of
Yeah.
talk about what's fact in terms of finances and what's actually our
Mm.
situation. And so
Mhm.
I actually found that really
First
important.
feelings. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So I would say that's actually really good. And it can be a bit of an expense, but I found that some of the savings they found for us straight off the bat actually paid off a lot of it pretty quickly, which was a shock. So you do have to make sure they are accredited, as
Mm.
Betsy is, because there's a lot of people out there that I think are not accredited, check their credentials, their studies, and then if you've got tick ticks, definitely a great win there. So thank you, Betsy.
Yeah.
So we talked about how to start. What would be an example of, let's say, 3 good joint family goals for new parents?
That's a good one. If you're preparing to have your baby, I would focus on what are the financial goals that are going to provide us stability and flexibility. That using those two guide rails, things that might help you prepare for those upcoming changes in lifestyle expenses. I would focus on having some emergency savings, because you just hopefully everything goes well and to plan. And for most people, that's the case. But with my second baby, we've had a number of hospital visits with different viruses he picked up, unfortunately. But I'm so glad I had money set aside to fund an extended mat leave for myself so I could just focus on getting him well. So that's a real lived experience where having emergency savings and those buffers has really helped alleviate stress. Um,
Mhm.
I would get really clear around what's the cash flow going to look like whilst taking parental leave. Is that parental leave from work? Is that the government paid parental leave? Is that cash
Mhm.
savings? Making
Mhm.
sure they're really across what's the money coming in, what's the money going out, because it's going to look different from pre-baby life. And then the third thing, getting that childcare, that transition back to work, or the
Mhm.
cost of having someone stay at home, getting really clear on what that looks like. Then finally, your stretch goal, how can you continue to contribute to long-term savings? You still contribute to your retirement savings. If you're living in Australia, that's your superannuation. Or is that other long-term goals, buying a house, paying down a house, holidays,
Mhm.
education, whatever those high priority items are for you?
Okay, so think about emergencies, think
Mhm.
about your cash flow, look at your actual financial situation. A great way that I found was literally to do a 3-month grab from your bank statements,
Mm.
and look at your savings amounts as well, and then categorize it. There's a great, you'll know about this one, Betsy, the MyGov budgeting tool that's free
Yes.
online. So grabbing that, categorize your expenses for both of you. It's really quite simple. It's just plus, 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 or and minus whatever you need to minus. Um, then you talked about childcare, the transition back to work. Are you a family that can afford to take some time out? Is your workplace going to give you some paid leave, or the government, they substitute as well? If you qualify, then post that, then how do you contribute longer term? So a lot of people will be thinking, well, this is all well and good. I really don't like finances. Maybe I'll try some of this. But let's talk about people that really need to find savings. What are some good ways to reduce debt, find savings, maybe renegotiate their loans day to day? What are the things that you'd tell to your clients?
I would start with your big ticket items first, because a lot of times we focus on these $3 savings, like, oh, I'm going to skip the latte today and that's going to really change my financial future. Nah. I mean, if it's not those little tiny decisions that really change the trajectory. It's the $30,000 savings opportunities or wealth creation opportunities. So looking at your housing, if you are someone who has a mortgage, then can you renegotiate your interest rate to be cheaper? You
Hmm.
should be reviewing your interest rate every 12 to 24 months at a minimum. If you don't, you're paying the lazy tax and you don't want to pay that. That's expensive. Look at your insurances. That's car, home, health, all those personal insurances. Make sure that they are optimized and appropriate and you're getting the best deal. Every time I get a renewal notice, I go onto a comparison website or chat to my insurance broker, depending on the type of insurance, and
Hmm.
say, look, is this still the best policy, the best deal out there for me? Making sure I'm not paying too much. Then also looking at your investments. Everybody in Australia who has a superannuation fund is an investor. It's probably the biggest asset that you will ever accumulate outside of your home. Most of us ignore it for the first 20 years of our life. If we just paid a little bit of attention and did things like, how much am I paying in fees? And is that appropriate? Are those fees as low as they could be? Is it invested appropriately with the right risk profile, with the right orientation to growth assets like shares and property? Have I consolidated into a single fund? Does my fund perform well? Is it actually getting the results it should? Those things don't cost you anything and can make you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars richer. All you need to do is invest a few hours making a few tweaks, and you will literally make yourself richer. And the sooner you do it, the richer you will be.
I think that purely the super one is a gold mine. If people were to take one thing from today, hopefully they'll take more than one. I think that's super one, because it is a huge amount of money that's automatically taken out. And you can definitely make a lot of money, as you said, if you look at that closely. So I just want to highlight that.
Well, actually, on super for women, often it's actually through a lot of government lobbying, slowly changing. But traditionally, if a parent took parental leave, superannuation wasn't paid on that leave, which is weird, by the way, because we get super on sick leave, we get it on carers leave, we get it on holiday leave, but we don't get it on parental leave. Who knows why? But
Oh.
anyway, yeah. But the government has announced that they will start paying superannuation on paid parental leave, which is great, but a lot of private companies don't do it. Say you take 2 years out and you're earning the average Australian salary, which I think is around 80 to 90,000. Over that 2 year period, you'll miss out on about $12,000 to $15,000 of superannuation contributions. It doesn't sound like a huge sum, but if you fast forward to 35 years later when you're going to retire, that's going to be an additional 120,000 or so missing from your retirement savings. Now, obviously we want to like lobby governments and lobby our companies to include superannuation, but until we can create that change, how do we self-solve? The way to do it is to make extra contributions that when you are back at work or before you go on leave to fill the gaps. For me, I was fortunate enough to be aware of this. I started salary sacrificing through my 20s. The benefit of doing it earlier is that that money's been invested for an extra 10 years. That's going to compound and grow further. I need to contribute less, but I can mitigate and create great results with a lot less money because of that time in the market being invested. So that's a little quick tip is if you have the ability during your early years pre-baby to try and make those extra contributions to offset the impact of a career break or a parental leave break, that's going to make a huge difference to your retirement balance when you come to retire. Okay, super aside. Little hacks like switching your mortgage repayment. Say you can't negotiate a better deal. Switching it to a fortnightly instead of a monthly repayment will actually see you pay off your home loan quicker through more frequent payments, saved interest, and it just means you're a homeowner sooner. There's a great calculators on that moneysmart.gov.au website. It's actually my favorite website out of Google. It's got guides for everything. How to start a family, how to financially prepare to buy a puppy. It's really got everything.
It's very detailed.
So such a great resource. What I love about it is it's government run. So nobody is trying to sell you anything. It's just completely independent, useful tools and resources. So you've done the big ticket items. Then I would start getting into the more granular detail of where is your money going. Looking at your subscriptions. The average Australian spends $1,200 a year on unused subscriptions. There's a quick, easy savings that could pay for the pram or whatever. Review things like your electricity bill, water bill, gas bill, audit those subscriptions. Then the other big area to save is where you're spending money. We always want the best for our children, but it's really important to be mindful around where you're spending money. Don't buy things too early before you need them. Consider secondhand. There's a huge market of used baby goods and particularly clothes, for example. Look for those marketplaces or for things like potties or high chairs. Can you borrow stuff? Often family want to buy you gifts. Having a list of items that might be appropriate to be gifted is a great thing. Use your cashback sites when you're making your purchases. There's things like Cash Rewards or Shop Back, Grow My Money, where when you're making purchases, you get the exact same goods, but you get a cashback that either goes into your pocket or can be directed to your home loan or as an extra repayment to superannuation.
Had never heard of that.
Yeah. And then there's the $3 hacks, which you can, once you've done all those big ticket items, you can start looking at. For us as a family, shopping at Aldi instead of Coles saves us 30% on our grocery bill.
Wonderful. Look, that's some really good tips there. So I hope everyone's taken notes there. We can go back and listen. So another question for you is, you are a mum of two. What do you personally find the most difficult and tips that you use to manage that?
Yes. Okay. The most difficult thing when it comes to finances is the moving feast of your financial situations. My boys are still under 3. We're very early days. I'm like an L-plater parent. In that time, I've gone from having an executive role with paid parental leave to launching my own business to having to fund my own parental leave, the cost of one child, 2 sets of daycare fees. It's ever evolving, the clothes or the equipment that they need. So being really clued into my money, and having planned to have saving buffers to anticipate the decrease in income has helped me eliminate the stress of all these varying expenses. Having a routine of checking in on our finances and also appropriate expectations at this point in time. I am a money gal. I like to be earning and saving and investing and spending. Right now, I'm doing a little bit of earning, a lot of spending, and not much on the investing front. And I don't like it, but I'm okay with it because it's not forever. It's just for now. To recap that, I would say some good planning, a regular routine to check in because things are changing, and making sure you and your partner are reviewing your expenses, being agile little money ninjas and adjusting according to whatever the circumstances, acknowledging the season that you're in, what's really possible. It's ridiculous to think, we're going to be making strides on our mortgage or having the European holidays when you're down to one income and you've got little mouths to feed. You might be doing the Big Four caravan park, which just by the way is a lot of fun. It'll all come back eventually.
I think that's a really good reminder because the gap between your subconscious expectations about how you were living and then you haven't quite realized that suddenly you're in a new place, maybe feeling stress and anxiety is really a big thing, right? We don't know what we haven't experienced. And so
Yeah.
if you haven't addressed your subconscious expectations and then fast forward with the busyness of work and parenthood, of sleep and all of the above, and negotiating relationships with friends, they change too.
Yes.
I think it can be quite a lot of stress. So really addressing that. Another thing that you've really pointed out there, that which I'll reflag to our listeners, is ensure that you have a recurring checkpoint. And for people that aren't money gals like Betsy, those who it's not something you'd see as fun, setting a recurring calendar reminder or a date when you get your biggest renewals, and if you have a partner, both knowing about it. If you're solo, making sure that it's built into your schedule. Sounds like a ways to close that gap with anxiety. You're talking about it, it's real, you're moving forward, and you're doing your best because it's probably not going to be perfect, as you said.
Yes. One of my favorite money mantras is I take care of my money and my money takes care of me. A really nice way of reframing it from this chore, this burdensome thing, to it's a self-care practice, a more nurturing, wholesome experience. Again, probably throw in a little reward every time you do it. Go get a mani-pedi. It's not like go have a trip to Ibiza, not a silly reward, but something appropriate, and just make it fun. Who came up with the idea that money should be hard and chore like and restrictive and all of that? Let's talk about budgets. Budgets are often seen as this terrible thing that are going to restrict us and we're going to have to cut back and blah 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 blah. But I like to think about mine as a spending plan. How am I going to prioritize putting money towards the things that I care about most, supporting me having the lifestyle that I enjoy the most? And even just that language change really changes the energy. So really, there's no downside to engaging with your money.
They're, again, all really good recaps. If people were to just start with what Betsy said before, which is start with your big ticket items, take baby steps, work into it, having clarity on what you're actually spending on. We all know we're
Mm.
spending on stuff, vaguely aware. Some things, maybe they're in the naughty box, other things, whatever. But to actually spend the time to do that, I think really would take a lot of anxiety away from a lot of people, even if you get it down to a basic level. So I'd highly recommend that.
And there's so many free or inexpensive tools out there. For example, tracking where your spending's actually going. There's personal finance management apps like You Need a Budget, WeMoney, Frollo. Personally, I use WeMoney. It connects to the data in my bank accounts, reads it, and categorizes what income I have coming in and then what spending I do. And it does take a little bit of an investment of time, one, to connect your banking data, but two, also to train the categories a little bit. They get them about 85% right, but some of them they miss. Like they tried to tell me that Netflix was entertainment, and I was like, no, guys, that's childcare. I'm kidding, by the way. And that's a really great way to just have a very quick visual view how you're tracking. Are you overspending, underspending? How's your savings? Use technology to make your life easier. If budgets and spreadsheets, you're like, I am not a freak in the sheet. I do not like that. No, thank you. Cool. Use an app instead.
That's a great idea. I'll link that down. So WeMoney. And then there was one other thing I just want to pick back on a topic you mentioned before, is also not being afraid to speak to your workplace about what best practices. For example, on that government site, there's best practice for workplace in terms of what is the best maternity or paternity leave, how many weeks, what you cover. And there's also a lot of information out there that I found about how you could negotiate. And so if people are feeling that they don't know if they're getting the best situation, maybe their workplace, not intentionally, but don't have the most up-to-date policy with their compatriots. Perhaps would you say it might be beneficial for people to raise that or come up with what might be better, especially if you're having multiples, because you get at the moment one lot for two babies, and I'd say triple also the effort. About
Yes.
Betsy. What do you think about
I
that idea?
Knowledge is always power. So if you're venturing into this life-changing journey of becoming a parent, spend time reading up on these things. And like I was working in a workplace at one point where I wasn't having a baby, but a colleague was. We had no policy whatsoever. Get informed, go to those government websites, find out what is best practice, and don't be afraid to have that conversation. The worst thing you'll get is a no. But the best thing is that you might end up with a better policy. And often it's about that transition back to work. That's a really big chapter as well. You might want to build back up to whatever sort of amount of work you want to be doing, whether that's full-time or part-time. And also depending on the availability of childcare, you might have to build back up because you might not have the childcare available straight away. Open the communication with your workplace demonstrates that you take your job seriously, that you value yourself as an employee and the contribution you make. Becoming a parent doesn't make you a less than employee. It actually is a superpower. That was something I realized after becoming a parent, after years of managing teams. I did not appreciate the parents in my team and just the superhuman effort that they had getting to work, also how frightfully efficient they were. More of that, please. That confidence that becoming a parent is something that is adding to your CV, not taking away from it.
It absolutely makes you more efficient and more robust. So that's a huge win for the workplace, and probably less flappable about things that don't matter, I think is what I hear
100%.
amongst people, because there's so much worse you've now dealt with. Anyway, I'm going to recap because we're getting towards the end here. We've gone through how to approach this with your partner, your personal mindset, understanding where you came from with your finances, looking at the best starting point. So where to start, how to start, what's the mechanisms for paying down or negotiating current expenses, and having goals, making sure it's fun, working out ways to free up cash, a few other bits and pieces. Hopefully this has been really valuable to everyone. I found it great. I've actually learned a lot of things today that I hadn't heard of. So Betsy, thank you so much for jumping on today. Really enjoyed having you in, and I shall link Betsy's details in the show notes. So if you want to reach out, ask questions, or follow her on Instagram or wherever else she's located, you can do so. So Betsy, thanks so much.